Hey, morning all. Let's talk, in this video, let's talk types of exercise, right? So I'm often asked with clients saying, what is the best type of exercise for me to do of my age and at this moment in time and, you know, with these ailments and blah, blah, blah. And the thing is, it's often being human, it's not like, yes, there's the dosage and the certain types of exercise can change for people's individual circumstances. But for broad brushstrokes, as categories of exercise, I think everyone can benefit from what I would call the five buckets, 5 types, 5 categories, which I'll explain in a sec. Now, I like to do these 5 things, how I train myself, all individually and separately. I'm obviously passionate about training. And I managed to worm these into a weekly program. But I am fully aware that clients, some very busy career mums, with, 3 kids or whatever, will just have a slight panic attack and die from anxiety with me trying to mention cramming 5 types of exercise into their training program. But you can condense those 5 things into, say 2 to 3 sessions. So anyway, I will explain the programming at the end. So first up, let's give a quick synopsis of what these things are. First is NEAT, right? It's an acronym for basically your movement portfolio of the day. That isn't a planned sort of exercise. So you're walking to work and your movement around. Basically, you're like logging your steps each day. So that's one bucket that's very useful to look in and check and monitor and strive to do. 2 is going to be your strength training. 3 is going to be your cardiovascular work, anything to get the heart rate up. 4 is going to be corrective exercise, which the dosage and the exercise selection, as usual, is going to be very individual, specific and dependent. And number 4 is recovery work. So working on some tissues, rolling, a little bit of stretching, mobilizing, tennis ball work, lacrosse ball, etc. So those are the 5 things. So let's break them down a little bit more. Number 1, this NEAT, this acronym, fancy name, it stands for, you don't need to know, like non-exercise activity thermogenesis. Basically, as you said, like you're not specific set forms of exercise, it's what you're naturally just accruing in your general daily lifestyle, walking to work, getting on the tube, etc., going to the post office, everything you've got to normally sort of do, that counts as like your steps. So now a lot of people are logging their steps. It's a great thing to do. It's something I never really bothered personally myself to do, especially in my 20s and 30s, because being into exercise, I was doing enough of it. I was sort of, I was training 5 to 6 days a week, strength training. I was running. And so, I didn't really need to do I need to use my steps for anything? But I'm fully aware that for a lot of people who are struggling with sort of time and busyness and this, using the walking and upgrading that slightly is a lot more of an easier thing to do than finding an hour in here and there to go and do this, or meetings come up so you couldn't make it to the gym or you couldn't make it to this class. But you could easily, at the end of that or in between meetings, or answer a call whilst doing a quick walk around the block, is easier to sort of siphon and drip feed in. You could go to the post office and instead of walking straight back home, just decide to do a quick lap around the park, just adding on an extra 500 steps here and there, suddenly not only amasses to more in the day, but over the week can really help. Now, even though, and it's a good thing just to get outside, we spend too much time indoors in meetings or inside, so actually getting some steps by getting outside and getting the sun on your face or the fresh air or the elements is just good for the soul as well, and has other benefits. So it's a good thing to try, and a good string to the bow, just even to monitor. Don't also, though, give it too much kudos, because there are some people that don't like the exercise. They go, well, I've got my steps and done my 10,000. But I know lots of 10,000 steppers a day who work in the city and easily accrue that, who are, under-exercised and overweight, and it's not enough to, work whatever they need, for a weight loss goal, etc. So just be careful of its limitations, but also of its benefits, which is why it's got a seat at the table. So that's number 1. Number 2 is strength training. Now, believe it or not, even though I'm a strength coach and PT, I'm not going to talk too much about this, because luckily for once, after 30 years of me hoping it's got to this stage, or wanting it to get to this stage. It has. Like, the spotlight and limelight is on strength training. And, you know, I've said before, it's not just a male-orientated activity. Everyone will benefit from it, which is now being, you know, touted by a lot of coaches and a lot of people in and outside of the industry. You know, whether you're 12 years old or 92 years old, getting the dosage right and strength training for you with the right exercise selection is going to be beneficial to, you know, for injuries, posture, keeping you in the game, keeping everything ticking over. So it's a great thing to have and a great thing to do, and a lot of people have been missing this element for a long time. And it's so nice to see so many women deadlifting and strength training and squatting in the power racks in the gym, where they would normally be in the classes doing legs, bums and tums or on the cardio kit. So that's great. Next section, number 3, is cardio. So again, different from the NEAT, we want people to be really getting the heart rate up with a different format. And you can get this up really doing anything, you know, playing a sport, tennis, squash, badminton, you could be running, you could be cycling, you can be swimming, you can be rowing, you can, you know, all the things that are designed to actually get that heart rate up. And that's different from the NEAT. You know, I know some people go, well, I walk a lot, I get my 10,000 steps in, but, you know, we want something extra on top. That's an extra little bit of stress. And, you know, if you've got it in your system, regardless of whether you like it or not, I always think it's good to do it. You've got to think also from this. I know a lot of people hate running. I'm not here to tell you do running, it's better than the others, which it's not. You get that heart rate up however you want to. If you want to get a skipping rope and do it in the living room, or just jump up and down in the living room or on a trampoline, it doesn't matter. If it's getting your heart rate up, it ticks this box. There's part of me that thinks, you know, we're bipedal creatures. We're designed, it'd be like someone saying like, oh, a fish shouldn't swim. You know, fish are designed for swimmers. They're modus operandi. You know, it'd be weird for people to go, oh, the fish have actually built themselves a climbing frame in the water so they can get some actual exercise and training in. No, they just need to swim around. We're bipedal creatures. We move around on 2 legs. Our whole system, nervous system, brain, everything is built around that. So we should be doing it. Now, I know people say, oh, well, you know, I run or I try to jog or I try to move on my 2 feet and it hurts my knees or my hips, but that's not the running's fault. It's like, that's like the fish sitting around with, you know, on a sofa in the water, not swimming, and has sat for ages at a desk and maybe smoked a few cigs and drank too much liquor and not done enough swimming. And its gills have kind of like closed up a little bit and its fins gone a little bit stiff. And so then when it tries to swim, its gills hurt and its fins hurt. You know, we don't say, oh, the swimming's done that, the swimming's bad for it. You know, it's the lifestyle. So we just need to change the lifestyle and get a bit, that's why the next section is corrective exercise, and get the body and the tissues ready and built up to be able to handle what we should be doing naturally. So yeah, the cardio, super important. Do what you want, get the heart rate up, because at the end of the day, it's not just working on the structural support of the tissues and the muscles that the strength training does. Most of the things that kills humans these days and has done for decades is heart disease. So working on the internal plumbing, I have to remind a lot of people, cardio stands for cardiovascular. We're working on the vascular system, the arteries, you know, the heart, all the good stuff. That's going to also keep you in the game a lot longer. So let's move on. The next is corrective exercise. So as I said, we need to be structurally sound to be able to take on a lot of these movements and sports that we were designed to do, that the human body naturally was designed to do. But over the years of a little bit of, you know, non-activity or lethargy or a few injuries here and there, and other muscles of what's been called inhibited, or I like to say gone offline a bit, got a bit weaker, atrophied, are the fancy names. But we just need to get them up to scratch. So there's a more of a stable foundation for you to operate from. And only good things will come from that. Increased power, less injury, better posture, better breathing, etc. So there's, you know, this, as I said, is very individual. You have to go to a coach and, you know, we measure you and then we say, look, you need to upgrade this. But broad brushstrokes, I've said for ages, I could make a career with fixing people just by training their glutes properly and their core. because that's the main sort of engine and around the pelvis and that neck of the woods, where everything upstream and downstream of that starts to collapse or get injured if those foundations aren't secure. You could also go upstream of that, rotator cuff. A lot of people have shoulder injuries and impingements and stuff because that's slightly weaker. And you can go downstream of that and find issues at the foot and the ankle and calf, etc. Also broad brush strokes, but for a lot of people these days, it's that whole posterior chain that could do with a slight upgrade. Now, whether correctives is done slightly differently, it's a stress thing. Where we go into the gym and do the strength thing, which was number 2, that is where we want to hit it, put stress on the tissues, allow rest and recovery and sleep and nutrition to upgrade those. So the frequency can be a lot less. That's slightly different when we're dealing with inhibited muscles. They need a constant coaxing. So therefore, the stress is a lot lower. It's more of stimulate, don't annihilate the tissue. And therefore, we can have shorter sessions, 5 to 10, 15 mins, and we dial into those a lot more frequently just to coax them and, wake them up each day. So therefore, we can be doing that sort of 5 days a week, 6 days a week, and a little and often approach is really what's, in my opinion, in my experience, the best way to go with those. And then lastly, and again, this is often, you can piggyback if we're going to compress these things down, which we'll talk about in a sec. The next one's recovery. So we're talking stretching, we're talking foam rolling, tennis ball, lacrosse ball, finding trigger points in the muscles. If we've been doing the strength training and the running, and it's a new stimulus, we may have new little aches and tiredness and shortness in the muscles starting to come, which we need to just keep on top of before they turn into niggles or before we're ready to go again and hit more of a performance aspect out of it. And if we keep those things unaggravated and nicely pliable and elastic, we're going to be able to generate more power and get a better performance aspect too. Now, what's important in this, believe it or not, is it's less stretching than you think. And this was one of the aha moments I had early on in my corrective career, is to work out what muscles are actually short and tight and what are long and taut. Now, both of those, short and tight muscles and long and taut, are going to present as tightness. So you can go along and go, I've got really tight muscles, I need to stretch. But if it's a long and taut muscle, then you're stretching an already stretched muscle, and it's not going to do what you think it's going to do. It may give you some immediate little relief because that tightness is actually now just getting a bit of expansion and contraction in it. But after you've gone away, the issue's still going to persist. I'm going to tell you quickly what I mean by that. So for posture, let's say if we're upright and we're all nicely relaxed, and the muscles in the back like this are nice and relaxed and got a good length tension relationship. If my posture changes and I round my shoulders like this, then you can see that as I round, so nice and loosey-goosey, as my posture changes and I'm over-exaggerating the round, this is actually going into a stretch. The muscles in the back, because the shoulders and everything round forward, are going to go into a lengthened position. Now this is tightness. This is a ping, tight band. So those muscles feel tight, but they're not short and tight. They're long and taut. When those shoulders round like this, the pec muscle here becomes lengthened, now becomes shortened. So this is short and tight. These on the back, as I've just explained, are long and taut under the stretch. So these need, the pecs and the pec minor need a stretch. The rhomboids and everything need a strengthen to bring these back in order to take that long tightness and stretch and ease it off into their better range of motion. So you'll find with the correctives, going in and doing some tissue work, finding what muscles in the system need to be stretched and then which need to be strengthened. And you start to upgrade the system correctly, really getting a bit more nuanced with it and get that quicker fix. I remember when I had really tight adductors and groins, and I used to stretch them every day, frog stance, getting in there, doing them, and it felt like slightly good, but then 15, 20 minutes later, boom, they were back being tight. Often you've got to ask, why are they so tight the whole time? Are they structurally becoming tight because they need to? The tightness is there to try and keep something in place. So there's a reason for the tightness. And often when you go to the opposite muscle and find actually it's the weakness there that needs to stretch or needs to strengthen, then it balances out the system and that long taut muscle can relax off. So a need for those 5 categories of movement to be woven into your weekly program, whoever you are, you know, whatever age, there will be some form of all of those 5. If those are all in operation, you're going to get the best out of your body and your performance. So now it's like, how do we build those in? So for me, as I've said, I like to use little separate pockets for those. So for me, for example, I could do like upper body on Tuesday, small run Wednesday. I could do then upper body training again on the Saturday, slightly longer run on the Sunday. And I would have Monday off and Thursday off and Friday off. Now, those Mondays, Thursday, Fridays, I'd also be doing maybe 4 to 5 corrective exercise a week. So that would be with a mini band in the floor at home, maybe doing some glute medius work, whatever needs to be done as I go across my body and find what little things I need to upgrade. Also some core work that I like to do within that as well. Now, I could do, and I know a lot of people do their core work in their strength training sessions. And they also do their recovery and their rolling and their stretching at the end. Great. And if you want to condense all of those in there, super. What I find though, and I think others may do as well, that once I've done a hard, heavy workout for like an hour or something, and then my nervous system's a little bit fried and the body's tired, and then I think now I've got to go and do core, now I'm going to shoehorn in some stretching at the end. Even the core gets, you know, a little half-assed approach, even though I really want to do it. I just don't have the capacity to give it its just desserts in the right amount of time. And so I like to actually find instead an extra 15 minutes. The core, it doesn't have to be like an hour session. You can hit it sufficiently from a lot of different angles relatively quickly. So I like to do that within the corrective section. I'm not rushing through it. I know I've got X amount of time to do that. And the same with the recovery. I remember back in the day, the thought of people saying, oh, why don't you do your rolling and your stretching at night when you're just chilling in front of the TV? But me in my 20s and 30s, my mind then was when I'd got home and after I'd grafted at work or gone to the gym, etc., this is my little bit of me time to have eaten, to have a cup of tea, to sit on the sofa with the wife, to maybe have a biscuit, watch Netflix, put on a show, sit down for an hour before going to bed, unwind. I didn't want to be getting on the ground and rolling around and stretching muscles. It was a distraction I didn't want. But nowadays, with me, maybe it's an age thing, finding there's not much on TV I like watching. I'm more often than not distracted on my phone, looking at something. Getting on the ground and actually, you know, doing the rolling and getting that work in is a perfect time for me. And even if there is something good on TV, I don't mind watching it whilst rolling now. I don't know, just it's a different vibe. But you meet you where you are, you know. That works for me because I'm not rushing. I can just get it done. I don't need to do it for very long. It's just ticking over. I know the need to do it because if not, I don't want to get injured because I like training. And so I get it done. And so as long as you do however you want to do it within your week, I don't mind, I don't care. But I would say have a look into those 5 forms of exercise, and a really good program is getting all of those in within the week to get that body moving as optimally as it can.